Julius Caesar. We started Act 1 when the Roman people were celebrating the beginning of the spring, where they name it the Festival of Lubrical, and they were also celebrating Julius Caesar winning the war against Pompey. As Pompey wasn't admired by most of the people, so most of the Romans were celebrating his murder or his killing. But we have Flavius and Morales. They didn't agree this celebration because they were the supporters of Pompey. So they started to talk to the people who were celebrating. They were some workers and everyone celebrating in the streets waiting for Caesar. They tried to stop them and they tried to blame them for celebrating and for murdering their king. As they didn't like him, these people, they didn't like him to be the ruler of Rome. But Flavius and Morales didn't agree with that. So they started to cut down all the decorations that were put up for Caesar. And they said that they are going to prepare something against Caesar. And then Caesar appeared with a group of companions, starting with his wife Calpurnia, his second in command Mark Antony, some important Romans like Brutus and his wife Portia, the great orator Cicero, and some senators like Cassius and Casca. And everyone was yelling, Caesar, Caesar. Then there was one voice that grabbed Caesar's attention because it was much louder than the rest, where Caesar quickly replied that, who calls to me? What do you want? Caesar will listen. And here Caesar liked to use his name, replying people, instead of saying I or me. And some people thought that he wanted to show that he was better than any other man, or he wanted to make himself sound like a god. Then Mark Antony replied that he asked the man to reply quickly what does he want, because Caesar's words must be obeyed quickly. The man replied by saying, beware the Ides of March. And here the Ides means the 15th of March. Caesar ignored the words and he asked, what is he talking about? Brutus said that he's trying to warn you from tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be the Ides of March, the 15th of March. So he's trying to warn you, Caesar. Caesar laughed and he didn't care, and he called the man as mad and a dreamer. And he said confidently that no fear for Caesar. They all entered the forum, and all the companions went except Brutus, and followed him Cassius. They stood together and they started to talk. First, it started when Cassius asked Brutus, aren't he going to watch more of the fun? Where Brutus replied that he's not interested, and don't let me stop you. And here Brutus tried to tell Cassius that he doesn't want him to use his own words or his own way to stop Cassius. And he turned and to leave. Cassius stopped him and asked him that he wanted to talk to him from a while ago because he seems a little bit distant. But Brutus replied that he was busy thinking with a lot of things in his mind, and he told him to not worry because he's still thinking of him as a friend. Then Cassius tried to tell Caesar that everyone respects his words and everyone respects him and respects his judgment. That's why he doesn't that's why Brutus didn't want him to complete his words, because he was always trying to lead him into danger. But Cassius tried to free himself by telling Brutus that you are too modest, and he's trying to free himself by trying to say that he was not the one that used to trick people and then betray them from the back. Then they heard a sound, that sound that came from inside. It was all the people chanting, Caesar, Caesar. Brutus was shocked, and he told Cassius what does the shouting mean? And he said also that he feared that the people had chosen Caesar to be their king. From here, Cassius knew that Brutus was clear that he didn't like Caesar to be the king, and it was his chance to complete his way to make Brutus to be against Caesar. He used another words by telling him that Caesar is not better than me, and I was born just as free as Caesar, and so were you. And then he talked about a previous challenge between Cassius and Caesar, where without the help of Cassius, Caesar would have drowned down in the river. And it was the chance for Cassius to let Brutus be against Caesar. But they heard another sounds like saying Caesar, Caesar again, where here they were afraid because this means that Caesar is starting to collect more of honors and more of acceptance from the people. As it was too clear for Cassius that Brutus doesn't ever accept that. Doesn't ever accept that. So he said another words that your name is good as Caesar's, so why should his be spoken more? And he tried to tell him that Rome was a big city, that it wasn't ever ruled by only one person, and without the senators, it wasn't there wasn't Rome. And here we are going to talk about the group of senators that used to be under the Senate, where they used to rule Rome, and they were equal, except when Pompey and followed him Caesar started to rule Rome with their own way, which is power and influence. And that's why Brutus didn't accept that Caesar would be their king. Brutus tried to stop Cassius from all his words and his way. And he told him that he's going to think of every word that were said, and he's going to think for Rome. And he said something important, which is, I'd rather live for Rome forever than live under a tyrant, whoever is the tyrant, either Caesar or anyone else. Later, all the crowd had returned, filling the streets once more. They left the meeting room and they went outside, where they looked surprised and they were totally shocked. And Caesar also was upset. And then they agreed, Cassius and Brutus agreed to grab Casca and ask him about what had happened inside, to know why they were all sad and upset. And they tried to hide behind one of the columns inside the tent to grab Cassius, and they were totally busy trying to find Cassius from all the crowd. But Caesar had seen them, and he grabbed Mark Antony and he told him. He told him that Cassius has a lean and a hungry look, and his eyes narrowed and suspicious, and his face is pale, and he thinks too much, and such men can be very dangerous. Here, Caesar means that Cassius is a very dangerous man where they had to take care of. But Mark Antony didn't agree. And he said that we shouldn't fear Cassius. We shouldn't fear Cassius. But Caesar replied by saying, Caesar fears no one. But men like Cassius are always jealous of those who are greater, who are better than him. Then, Brutus and Cassius, of course, didn't hear any word because they were busy trying to grab Casca. And suddenly, they found Casca and they grabbed him and they started to talk with him. They asked him about what has happened inside and why is Caesar so moved, why he doesn't look normal, he looks upset. Casca quickly replied by saying that he was offered the crown and he turned it down. Brutus was happy. And then he said, but why they were chanting Caesar, Caesar again and again? He said, because Caesar was offered the crown 3 times. And I think it was just like a play of acting between him and Mark Antony. Then Cassius asked who had offered him the crown. Casca said that Mark Antony has offered him the crown 3 times, and every time he tries to show that he doesn't like it and he waved it away. But the last time, he kept thinking for a while and then he accepted. And after he accepted, he fainted down. He fell down. Cassius was surprised and he asked, what do you mean with fainting? How did he faint? Casca said that he fell down and he foamed out of his mouth and he couldn't speak. Brutus replied by saying that it wasn't a play acting, that Caesar was ill and he had a sickness where a white foam could fall from his mouth when he faints and falls down on the ground. But I care for only one thing now, which is, what did he say when he recovered? Casca replied that Caesar said that his illness was to be blamed if he had done or said anything wrong. And he asked everyone to forgive him, and of course everyone forgave him because they love Caesar. And he had also another news to be said about Flavius and Marullus, that they had been arrested because they cut down all the decorations that was made to honor Caesar. After that, the 3 men departed. Everyone went to a place. Brutus went home. Casca went to dinner with some friends. But Cassius stayed alone in the tent thinking about all the conversation that was between him and Brutus and also Casca. He was also thinking what is he going to do next after this chat, and he told himself that he knew from long ago that Caesar doesn't like him and he always suspicious him. And he also knew that Brutus and Caesar were friends. But what he knew today is that Brutus doesn't accept Caesar to be his king, and he doesn't like that. So he thinks that this is going to be easier for him to complete his idea about, or his plan to finish Caesar quickly, because his best friend or his friend Brutus is totally against or started to be against Caesar. And he also told himself that he is going to kill Caesar before he is going to be their king and finish them. The weather was against Caesar, and there was a lot of thunder, and the sky was dark. And Casca, when he was going home, he met a line where it was all It was all signs for Cassius that his plan is going perfectly. In a dark street, Casca bumped into Cassius and he told him about what had happened in that night from the bad weather and meeting the lion. And they agreed together that this night was a sign for them to let their plan work on. And then the weather was bad again and thunder started to crack in the sky. And Casca said something important, which is he had heard that tomorrow Caesar is going to go to the Senate to be made their king. Cassius replied by saying that he's going to prepare his dagger and wear it. And here they agreed to shake hands where they are going now to be two against Caesar. Then Casca asked about Brutus, whether Brutus is going to be with them or not, because he is a respectful man where everyone respects him, and it's going to be a good thing to be in their side, in front of everyone. And then they agreed to leave, where they are going to go home and to meet Brutus early in the morning before the sun rises.